we welcome new members and celebrate their new membership with them. FinCity.Tokyo has become a new member of the World Alliance. We are very proud of that, very happy about this, and I want to be here in Tokyo with you and celebrate this. This is something where we can exchange best practice or even coordinate across the financial centers. It's important to share also related to the financial industry. We might have communication issues. Now discussion is again on bailing out market participants, industries, and so on. And we need to explain to the public why this is needed for certain industries, maybe even in the financial industry. And this requires explanation, this requires active communication. This is something where hopefully we can act together.
The key question is understanding about it and understanding about the impact. And the volatility of the financial market is a result of that unknown, because we don't know the properties yet. But as more the properties will get known, the better will be the markets will be able to cope with handling that and mitigating those risks. All governments do have the instruments to help the big national champions. But the vast size of SMEs, which provide the dynamic, which provide the employment of the economy, that's way more difficult. And to share here best practice and to have projects on how that's going to happen, that's key. By the way, we worked in these SME project, and what you see also now is a 500 billion euro program on KfW, which is the development bank, which is the state's development bank that basically was a bank for reconstruction after World War II. They employ these banks and use them to disperse, together with other financial institutions, that massive amount of money to provide liquidity in such a difficult period of time. And here you see, and sharing these best practices and learning from each other can only be of help for each and every financial center.
We all know the high-rises here in Tokyo, in other financial centers. We know banks, insurance companies, asset managers, and so on. Many different actors. But when we talk about financial centers, we shouldn't forget startups, fintechs, startups in the financial industry. We shouldn't forget regulatory authorities, central banks. And we also, and this is very important for me, we shouldn't forget universities and talent development, which is very important for our financial center. So all this together, this cluster, this is what I mean when I'm talking about financial centers in that sense. Financial centers compete. Usually they compete very strong regionally. Here, Tokyo have some competitors in Asia. I think it's fair to say. The European financial centers also compete, and in North America, you have also some financial centers which are in a competition. But there's so more where the financial centers can collaborate. Co-opetition is, I think, one of the words which is related to this. Financial centers are keen to sustain economic growth. This is what is behind, this objective is behind our action in working together. So they provide the investments, the savings, they contribute more and more to sustainable developments, to innovation in finance. I've mentioned the fintechs already. And our idea, our aim of the World Alliance is to share best practice among the members and also to develop the dialogue, not only among the members, but also with third parties, with the general public, with authorities, and so on. So this is basically what we are doing. We do this in a form of projects. I've mentioned already the role of the financial centers in financing the economy. It's very important to explain what financial centers are doing, how they are related to the real economy in particular, because in some cases the general public believes financial centers are more dealing with themselves.
I think certainly in terms of sharing leading practice, I think there's a lot we can collaborate on many issues. I mean, our members many of the members of the World Alliance are also members of the IBA Japan. We are totally focused on the domestic market, Japan. But the firms, in answer to your question, all of these firms are global. So they're all operating in all of these jurisdictions. So at the firm level, there's lots of areas where sharing best practice, I think, would be really useful. I'm looking forward to kind of exploring that as we go forward. Japan is one of the most liquid, as you said, it's one of the most liquid markets. It's got amazing infrastructure, both from a social perspective and from a kind of financial perspective. It's got a government and authorities that work very closely together in a crisis. So there are lots and lots of positives. Probably one, I think, of the things that FinCity.Tokyo can do is do what you're already starting to go out and promote that in the world. Build collaborations, build that understanding to improve that. Yes, there are things that could improve. So, for example, if I look at international business, there is a skill shortage in Japan in financial services. There's also a language challenge, but there are ways of solving that. Yep. There are things that can be done between collaboration between the agencies, but generally speaking, there's a lot of misunderstanding about the good things in Japan, and I think there's a lot to be done in promoting that.
Yeah. Japanese outside Japan tend to be very negative about Japan, but international people here in Japan tend to be positive about Japan, right? So there's a significant perception gap we have to fill as well. So that's why promoting Tokyo or conveying that right information, sharing the right information is quite important.
Tokyo is key to the whole of the financial service industry is key to the whole of the Japanese economy. It's key to the revitalization of Japan. It's key to the success of Japan. So we've got to kind of get away from kind of saying, well, Tokyo versus the regions, or you focus on the regions, or you focus on, Tokyo has a lot of things that it can do to actually help Japan and help that perception. So many things, I think. So we're not just talking about Tokyo financial services.
Exactly.
So I think it's really important, and I understand that. I think we mustn't forget the fact that actually the management of assets is kind of the end of the value chain in many ways. You've got banks do lending, funding. They do securitization. Insurance companies manage pension funds. So there's a whole big ecosystem that actually is important for the success of asset management that involves many different firms. Going forward, fintech as well, which I think is another big focus, very important focus. So I think absolutely that whole ecosystem is something that we can all work on and learn a lot from our friends at the World Alliance as well.
Primary role of FinCity.Tokyo. I think FinCity.Tokyo is basically to fill the communication gap and perception gap, right? So there's a lot of great ideas in Japan, but never communicated in English. So we communicate what's already available, and there are lots of people doing great things and initiatives. We communicate to the rest of the world, and we obtain feedback and circle back to the key stakeholders, including the regulators and politicians, etc. So that's our main role. We're not limiting to Japanese portfolio managers, right? We try to encourage any international people with relevant experience and talent to inspire our society. And we have already done similar things for sports, football and rugby and even sumo wrestling. We're importing lots of talent here to boost the talent pool and inspire other athletes as well. So we should do the same for asset management and for entire financial services industry.